I tried to make my pushover boyfriend jealous with a picture of my ex. He just ghosted my entire existence. It started on Instagram, just a mindless scroll before bed. I tapped on Gale's profile, a dumb little habit, and it was gone. Like, not just his latest post, his entire grid. 0 posts, 0 followers, just that default gray silhouette where his smiling face used to be. My brain just couldn't process it. I kept refreshing, my thumb hitting the screen over and over like a stupid tick. It has to be a glitch, right? So I hopped over to WhatsApp. "Hey, is your Insta bugging out?" I typed. Sent. And then I saw it. One single, lonely gray tick. My stomach did a horrible little flip. That's when the real, cold panic started to creep in. I opened Facebook, my fingers shaking a little. I went to my photos, to the album I'd named Gale and Hadley. It wasn't there. Every picture, every tag, every dumb inside joke in the comments just wiped. He hadn't fought with me, he hadn't sent an angry text. He just evaporated. He deleted every digital trace of us, of me, and I was just sitting there, staring at a blank screen, feeling like a ghost. Gale, God, even his name sounds gentle, doesn't it? He's a software developer, one of those quiet, steady guys who actually listens when you talk, not just waits for his turn. He's the kind of boyfriend my friends would gush about, the marry him yesterday type. And he was perfect. Almost annoyingly so. He remembered that I hated cilantro, that I liked my coffee with exactly 1.5 sugars, that I had this weird thing about needing the volume on the TV to be an even number. A few months ago, I mentioned offhand that I thought I was getting migraines from a certain floral scent. I forgot I even said it. The next day, the scented candle I had on my nightstand was gone, replaced by an unscented one. He never said a word. He just noticed. He just fixed it. Our life was this calm, predictable, comfortable little stream. And that was the problem, right? It was so damn calm. The silence in our apartment wasn't peaceful to me. It felt empty, like I was waiting for an alarm to go off that never did. My ex, Connor, our relationship was a dumpster fire. A glorious, 5-alarm dumpster fire. I remember once he found an old movie ticket stub in my coat pocket and accused me of cheating. The fight lasted until 4 a.m., complete with him throwing my clothes out the window. The next day, he filled my entire apartment with roses. It was insane, but it felt like passion. With Gale, there were no explosions. His stability felt like indifference. His trust felt like he wasn't paying attention. Every time he didn't rise to my bait, every time he just calmly talked through a minor disagreement instead of yelling, it wasn't a sign of maturity to me. No, in my twisted logic, it was the proof. Proof that I wasn't important enough to get angry over. And a little voice inside me, this nasty, insecure little worm of a thought, started asking the question, does he even care enough to fight for me? I needed to know. I felt like I had to poke the bear just to see if it would roar. So, last Tuesday, Gale was at his weekly board game night with his friends. The apartment was quiet. Library-level quiet, the kind where the hum of the refrigerator felt deafening. I was just scrolling through my phone, drowning in the silence, and my phone, like a little digital devil on my shoulder, served up a memory. And there it was. A picture of me and Connor, my ex, from a music festival years ago. We're not kissing or anything, just laughing, heads thrown back, sun-drenched, looking like two people who lived on drama and cheap beer. It was a nothing picture, really. But in that moment, my brain, my big, brilliant, self-sabotaging brain, came up with a plan. I know, it sounds insane now, but at the time it felt logical. Like a science experiment. Hypothesis: a controlled dose of insecurity will trigger a protective, possessive emotional response in the subject, Gale. Conclusion: that jealousy will prove he's not just with me out of convenience, that he actually has a deep, primal fear of losing me. It was so stupidly simple in my head. I wasn't trying to break up with him. God, no, I just wanted to shake the tree a little, see what falls out. So I uploaded the photo to my Instagram story. I didn't even crop it much. I wanted his arm to be clearly and casually visible around my shoulder. Then I spent a full 5 minutes crafting the caption. Blast from the past. Too innocent. Look what I found. Too obvious. Then it hit me, the perfect blend of vague and provocative. Some things just find their way back to you, Hey, I want to vomit just thinking about it. I hit post. My heart did a little thump, thump, thump. that cheap, sugary rush of adrenaline you get right before you do something you know you shouldn't. I tossed my phone on the couch, a stupid little smirk on my face. I could see it all play out in my head like a movie. His phone would buzz on the table next to the Dungeons and Dragons board. He'd glance down, his brow would furrow. He'd excuse himself, his friends would notice his mood shift. The call would come within 10 minutes tops. His voice would be a little tight, a little hurt, but not truly angry. That was key. "Hey, Hads, what's that post about?" And I'd get to be all cool and reassuring. "Oh my God, babe, it's just an old memory that popped up. You're the only one for me, don't be silly." And then he'd be so relieved, maybe even come home early, and he'd hold me extra tight that night, and I would have my proof. I would have my little roar from the bear. I wasn't an evil mastermind. I was just an idiot with a smartphone, playing with matches in a house I didn't realize was made of paper. As soon as I posted it, my brain, like it was trying to punish me, started replaying this one specific conversation we had. It was months ago, maybe our second or third month together. We were lying in bed, just talking, the way you do in the beginning when everything about the other person is a fascinating new country to explore. And somehow we got on the topic of our parents. He told me about how his mom and dad had this incredibly volatile marriage. He described it so vividly, I could practically see it. His mom was always testing his dad, making little digs about his job in front of friends, flirting with waiters just to see if he'd get jealous. And his dad would fall for it every time, and it would end in these huge, house-shaking fights, followed by tearful apologies, and then the whole sick cycle would start over. He wasn't emotional when he told me, not really. He was just analytical, like he was describing a case study for a psychology class he was taking. They spent their entire marriage playing these stupid, pointless games, he said, his voice flat. He talked about hiding in his room as a kid, listening to them, thinking that this was what love was supposed to be. A constant, exhausting performance. It was all about proving the other person cared enough to get angry. They never just trusted that the love was there. It was exhausting just to watch. He turned to look at me in the dark, and I could just make out the seriousness in his eyes. It was one of the first times I'd seen him look truly vulnerable. "My dad used to say my mom was just passionate," he said, and the word dripped with a kind of weary bitterness. But it wasn't passion, it was insecurity. And it poisoned everything. He reached out and took my hand, and his grip was surprisingly firm. "Hadley," he said, and his voice was so clear, so direct, it cut through all the usual late-night sleepiness. "I can handle anything. We can argue about chores, about money, about where to go on vacation. You can get mad at me, you can hate my favorite movie. But there's one thing I can't do. I can't do games. Please just promise me you'll never play games with me. If you're unhappy, just tell me. If you're angry, tell me. Just don't test me because I will fail. I won't play." I remember just squeezing his hand and saying, "Of course, babe, I'd never do that." And I meant it. I really, truly meant it in that moment. But lying there on the couch that Tuesday night, his words came back not as a memory, but as a warning siren. I hadn't just stepped on a crack. I had taken a sledgehammer to the one foundational rule he had ever set. And I'd done it with a smug little smile on my face, thinking I was being clever. So there I was, lying on the couch, phone in hand, waiting. I felt like a sniper, watching the target through a scope. The little icon on my story showed he'd seen it. I knew he'd seen it. But my phone screen stayed stubbornly, infuriatingly black. The minutes ticked by, 10 minutes, 20, an hour. The initial thrill of my little scheme started to curdle into something else. Confusion, at first. Maybe he had died mid-game? I concocted a dozen perfectly reasonable explanations. But as the clock on the wall ticked past midnight, the excuses started to feel thin. Then a prickle of annoyance. Seriously? He saw that picture, that caption, and he has nothing to say? Is he that checked out? I started composing angry texts in my head, righteous and indignant. "Fine, don't bother asking what's going on. Clearly you don't care." I was actually getting mad at him for not reacting to my manipulation. The irony is just sickening now. I fell asleep on the couch, phone clutched in my hand like a lifeline. When I woke up around 3 a.m., my neck was stiff, and the apartment felt cold. The first thing I did before even rubbing my eyes was check my phone. Still nothing. The annoyance was now morphing into a genuine, gnawing anxiety. This wasn't part of the plan. The plan involved a fight, a confrontation, something. This silence was a void, and my imagination was rushing to fill it with horrible possibilities. I scrolled through his social media, a digital stalker in my own home. His last post was from the weekend, a picture of a ridiculously complex board game captioned "Good Times." Everything was normal, too normal. It felt like watching a sunny home video of a family, knowing the house burned down the next day. The next morning, the silence was absolute. I called his phone, and it went straight to voicemail. Not even a ring. My heart started hammering against my ribs. Okay, don't panic, he's just angry. He's giving me the silent treatment. He'll show up at the door later with his jaw all tight, and then we can have the fight I wanted. But then I tried calling from my work phone. It rang. It rang and rang and rang. He hadn't turned his phone off. He had blocked my number. It was only when I went to send him a desperate, pleading WhatsApp message that I saw the single gray tick and the blank space where his profile picture used to be. And that's when I checked Instagram and Facebook and realized that the silence wasn't a punishment. It wasn't the silent treatment. It was an answer. The explosion I had been waiting for hadn't been loud and fiery. It had been a quiet, clean, digital amputation, and I hadn't even felt the blade go in. The panic was a physical thing now, hot and sharp in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my keys and ran out of the apartment, not even bothering to change out of my pajamas. I drove to his place, my hands shaking so badly I could barely keep them on the wheel. I kept replaying his last words to me from the morning before when he left for work. He'd kissed me and said, "Have a good day, Hads. I'll pick up that Thai food you like on my way home tonight." It was so normal, so mundane. How could we go from that to this? His car wasn't in its usual spot. I didn't care. I ran up to his apartment and started banging on the door. Gale, open up. We need to talk. This is ridiculous." I yelled, my voice cracking. Nothing, just the muffled sound of a TV from the apartment next door. I must have stood there for 20 minutes, just pounding on the door like a lunatic until my knuckles were red and sore. Defeated, I slumped against the wall and pulled out my phone. My last resort. Jessica. She's our mutual friend, the one who introduced us. I scrolled to her name and hit call, my thumb trembling. "Hadley? What's wrong? You sound awful," she answered, her voice full of concern. And it all just came pouring out of me, a messy, tearful, incoherent torrent of words. I told her he'd disappeared, blocked me everywhere, that he was ignoring me, and how could he do this? How could he be so cruel? I painted myself as the victim, the confused, abandoned girlfriend. I was waiting for her to say, "Oh my God, that's horrible, what a jerk." I needed her on my side, but she didn't say that. There was just a pause. A long, heavy, awkward silence on the other end of the line. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost all its warmth. It was cautious, distant. "Hadley, he called me last night," she said slowly, each word carefully chosen. "He told me what you posted. Listen, I really don't want to get in the middle of this. Are you okay?" That question, "Are you okay?" It wasn't concern, it was a dismissal. A polite way of saying, "You've created this mess, and I want no part of it." Her careful, deliberate distance, her refusal to take my side, was more damning than any accusation. It was the first time it truly hit me, like a slap of ice-cold water to the face. Oh God, I'm the bad guy in this story. I drove back to our apartment, my apartment, I guess, in a daze. The whole place felt wrong, like a movie set after the actors have gone home. It was too quiet, too still. His presence was gone, but the ghost of it was everywhere. The mug he used for coffee still by the sink, his running shoes by the door, the stupid fantasy novel he was reading lying face down on the nightstand. Half of his clothes were gone from the closet. The top 2 drawers of the dresser were empty. He must have come by while I was at work yesterday, after he saw the post. He'd packed a bag and left before I even got home, before I started my idiotic waiting game. The efficiency of it was brutal. No scene, no drama. Just a quiet, logistical exit. I collapsed onto the couch, the same couch where I'd hatched my brilliant plan just the night before, and that's when I saw it. Tucked neatly on the corner of the coffee table was a small, rectangular box from a ticket website. My hands felt numb as I opened it. Inside were 2 tickets to the Starlight Grove Music Festival, the one I'd been obsessing over for the last month, the one whose tickets sold out in an hour, the one I kept saying was way too expensive for us to even think about. The date on the tickets was for next weekend, for my birthday. Tucked under the tickets was a little yellow sticky note. It wasn't a letter to me. It was one of his little self-reminders, written in his neat, blocky handwriting. It said, "Don't forget to book the hotel surprise for HS birthday." And I just broke. I started sobbing, this ugly, heaving, guttural sound that I didn't recognize as my own. Because in that moment, the full, crushing weight of my stupidity hit me. While I was manufacturing fake drama on Instagram to get a reaction, he was quietly planning a perfect, thoughtful surprise. While I was trying to test his love with a ghost from my past, he was building our future, one concert ticket and hotel reservation at a time. The proof of his love that I was so desperately seeking had been there all along. It wasn't in grand, jealous gestures. It was in the unscented candles, the assembled bookshelves, the remembered coffee orders, and the secret birthday plans. It was quiet and it was steady, and I had mistaken that quiet for apathy. I had taken his peace and thrown a grenade into it just to see what would happen. Weeks have passed. I've heard through Jessica that he's staying with his brother. He's not coming back. I created a new Instagram account, a burner with no name and no followers. It's the only way I can see anything anymore. I spend my nights now sitting in this silent apartment, scrolling. I check Jessica's profile, our other friends' profiles, just hoping for a glimpse. Last night I found one, a group photo from a barbecue. He was in the back holding a beer. He wasn't smiling, but he didn't look sad. He just looked calm, peaceful, and me. I'm the ghost now, haunting the edges of a life I set on fire, holding a phone like a weapon I used to shoot myself in the heart, wondering how I'm supposed to live in the ruins.